hopefully this next kind of hour or so will be it'll be fun, informative. You never know, either you might take something away mentally, take away some swag, hopefully not missing over anything, either at the London Network Automation Meetup, which I didn't realise is planned for exactly now, which is a bit of a killer. But hey, we've got the wider net, so infrastructure, orchestration, and automation meetup, even a little bit wider than the network stuff going on at the moment. Okay. Very loose agenda. I promise I'm not going to try and kill you by PowerPoint. The group's been relaunched and renamed, so it's still, I think, in essence, the StackStorm group, but with the wider title, and there's good reason for that. And hopefully, we can put some life back into StackStorm itself and the community around these kind of topics. I'm going to go over a little bit of a StackStorm refresher, very brief history, and a bit of kind of reinvigoration, and really try and bring it back into the light. And then I can shut up at that point. And we've got Eugen, who's part of the StackStorm Technical Steering Committee, and Eugen's got a rich background with StackStorm. He's been with it from the very early days, and has kind of worked for the various companies that have owned it, and now obviously it's gone back to the Linux Foundation, and Eugen is still kind of very much at the helm, helping to drive that forward. We've got a demo from Amanda McGuinness. Amanda works for an official StackStorm partner called Amion Solutions, and Amanda's going to be demoing some workflows with AWS and ChatOps integration, which should be excellent. I've got some closing remarks, some industry markers, and some observations, which I want to share. But I'm also, I don't know if you've ever been to one of these meetups. I'm not really about kind of dictating here, so remarks are kind of my observations, and I'm obviously keen for any of your observations to come back this way. And then at the end, if you've got the energy for it, if you don't have to rush off, or if you're not dying of starvation, it'd be great to have a bit of a Q&A, and that's with any of the presenters today, or any of you that have any comments to make over in the audience. So let's talk about the relaunch. So Anthony Shaw, a guy who works for Die Data, he started the UK meetup and held 2 meetings in London. The second meeting I was fortunate enough to go to with actually a couple of people who are present on the webinar today. And then eventually Anthony got busy with doing other things and transferred the group over, certainly the admin over to me. That was kind of interesting. We met in a pub called the Doggets on the second meeting. Like I say, 4 or 5 people. It was really good, but ultimately it was very much like this. You know, I think for the excitement of trying to start a group up, not many people turned up, which was a shame for StackStorm in terms of its kind of sheer capabilities and love it seems to have. But a lot's happened in the last few years, and including StackStorm changing hands and obviously going over to the Linux Foundation. So it was about time to show StackStorm some love, and therefore part of that process. And I'm not officially involved with StackStorm anymore. I mean, I used to work for Brocade, who kind of acquired the organisation, but now this is very much for me. It's always got a bit of a soft spot. So I figured, well, let's try and spearhead some of the community work in the UK around StackStorm and relaunch a group. And naturally, as StackStorm's kind of moved out of the fold of just being applied to network automation, it makes sense, obviously, to widen the net and widen the audience as well. But hopefully, from a group relaunch, we go beyond having a pint of beer around a pub table and talking about war stories to really talking about kind of challenges, requirements, what we all face, what we all see, and how we want to solve them. I've just realised the guy holding the beer standing up looks a little bit like Victor Meldrew. That's terrifying. But ultimately, I know some of us work for professional services organisations, some work for vendors. We've got some frenemy situations going on, but ultimately, I think the community works best when we can do these kind of war games and almost pitching requirements and solutions against each other and the pros and cons of each, and something comes out of that, and we get a bit of wisdom that comes out of it, and we manage to get some shared experiences. And obviously, if we can get ahead of the curve and soak those experiences up, then we can prevent catastrophes and disasters and so on and so forth. The big thing for me is I've worked for Silicon Valley companies for the last 6 years. And I can't help, every time I hear a product pitch or an idea to launch a product, I just can't help think about Dr. Evil, just because it all starts off with, well, this could be the next $1 billion, the next $1 billion platform and the next $1 billion thing. it's a bit of a dichotomy. Everybody wants software for free. Everybody wants don't want to pay for it, but they want to take all the advantages. And especially open source software, they want quality. They expect quality. They expect it to be ran in the open. And then you've got kind of differing models, whether that's kind of open source or open core. But ultimately, all this software requires some love and care. You don't just get it for free. It costs somebody something. And even in these modern times where we measure wealth either by the number of social media followers that you have or how many likes on Instagram that you had, well, unfortunately, software is powered by money, not necessarily kudos. So we have this kind of circle of life going on, and I think it's often not talked about. And one of the things I want to talk about is, well, StackStorm now is in a position where it requires partners to maintain it, or that they're kind of good at the community to drive it forward and keep the platform honest. The other piece is relying on FANGs. I talk about FANGs in a lot of different ways. So it's Facebook, Amazon, Alibaba, Netflix, and Google. Relying on the FANGs only get you so far. So they release tools and platforms to help them and primarily their use cases, and it's down to you to pick it up and bend it which way that you will. And a lot of these FANGs have got almost limitless kind of bank balances. They can take on staff, they can run these projects. They're not necessarily bound by the kind of economics of SMB either. So kind of those small, medium-sized organizations, even if you work for one of those supporting a large organization, being at the will of the FANGs isn't great. I think that the lovely thing about StackStorm is when it launched, it had a lot of interest and a lot of big organizations picked it up and ran with it. And then those organizations have learned lessons. They've then tailored it either to bend it to the will, or they've built their own platforms very specific to the kind of way they operate. And it doesn't mean that StackStorm's not a good fit. It doesn't mean any of those tools are a bad fit. It's just things change naturally, and workflows and everything else mean that different tools are kind of picked up and put down. I think the big thing here for me is we have to be sensible about where these tools are and platforms are being used, how they're being used, and really just kind of being realistic. So the reality is you can get the open source for free, but if you want to go and put it in your environment, you can count on the community to a point, and then at some point there is an exchange of cash. Now either that's your time, which costs money to skill up, or it's engaging with professional service companies to then do deployments, to build packs, and to deal with all these different aspects of what infrastructure orchestration and automation requires. And I think it's something that we shouldn't necessarily shy away from, but it needs talking about, especially with platforms like StackStorm, which now rely on the inputs and the good grace of these companies to keep the platform alive. And I've got various feelings on this, and I'm kind of interested in what some of those views are going forward. I kind of, when you sit down and think about community, my brain immediately goes to a place I spent a lot of time in when I was a child, and we had a bus park, and in that bus park, my grandmother used to know everybody, and she was a kind of classic, 50s granny. She used to have kind of cigarette hanging out of her mouth, and she used to just play cards and games and whatever. She wasn't really one of these kind of cardigan wearing knitting granny. She was kind of old school and kind of work hard and all that stuff. But what happens when these people get around a table is magic things happen. Problems go away, kind of like family feuds disappear. Problems that face an area can be kind of put to rest, and I think community really comes from the ability to air those thoughts in a very driven way. Yes, we all have to put kind of dinner on the table, and we all have to make money, but we can all do that because there's plenty of food on the table ultimately. And I remember just growing up, Granny was always there. You told Granny what your problems were, and what did she say? Well, your problems kind of went away, or she made light of them. And I think if we could build some kind of a community around, I'm going to call it IOA just because I can't keep saying infrastructure orchestration and automation because I'm not wide like that. I'm going to cock it up at some point. But if we can build a community around that kind of thinking, where we kind of air the dirty laundry, don't make a big deal of it. It's like that whole blameless type kind of DevOps feeling of sharing and caring and learning. I think there's a lot to be had. I think all of us, certainly here, I know some of you that have joined this, there's lots and lots of different backgrounds and different kinds of experience that we can all bring to the table. And what are the gains? Well, you can fast path to knowledge, fast path to solutions. If we've got a working knowledge hub of, say, kind of GitHub repositories or documents or wikis or videos, and all roughly based on the same kind of approach to these problems. And if we take the 80-20 rule, is it going to fit everything? Absolutely not. But 80% probably could be solved if we kind of place StackStorm almost in the middle, or certainly close to that, with some tooling around the edge. And where StackStorm doesn't fit and where it doesn't work, then whatever. It's always horses for courses, but I think StackStorm is often overlooked, and I think as having that tool on the shelf to kind of pull off almost straight away and explore options. It brings me straight back to that community piece. I can't really talk about that anymore. And really, what can we do? I think I ask this every time I do anything in the community. Is it better to do these meets and just kind of do a show and tell? A lot of people, when asked, they're full of energy for coming along and watching, but not many people necessarily want to present back. They don't want to share, or sometimes they can't share. I mean, we get that as well. So we have to build some kind of a safe community where maybe we have a don't share or don't record clause. To try and gain that kind of shared wisdom. But what can we do ultimately? Can we create some hashtags? Does infra O&A work if we were to go on Twitter and LinkedIn and start sharing some of these things? At the minute, it's fairly scattered. It's scattered across vendors and system integrators, professional services organizations. And can we do it without trying to kill each other? I think the hardest thing is if any kind of supporting bodies for open source get involved here, it can't be a sales opportunity. I think we have to support on the full notion that everybody has to make money. There are organizations out there selling this stuff, but when it comes to knowledge, community, awareness, so whether you are a consumer of this technology or a provider of this technology, there is a symbiotic relationship in information sharing, and I think we can all gain really well from any energy and inputs into this approach. So I've just got some rough ideas. If infra O&A sucks, then it sucks. I'm really keen on not centralizing efforts here. So I don't want to kind of start a blog or a GitHub repo with just examples and get everybody to contribute to one thing. Independent organizations, we've got independent contributors. And we need to probably find a better way of aggregating that information and sharing the information. So I'm all out for ideas in terms of what you're all seeing, what you're all feeling. Is it a Slack group? Can we do some hashtag stuff? Do we just roll out some newsfeed aggregator? I'm not sure, but I'm open certainly for those options. Before I go on to this next bit here, a little bit more around StackStorm itself and then the kind of reinvigoration. Any comments so far? I don't think we've got about 17 people. That might be 16. So I think I'm here twice. Any thoughts so far? Instead of leaving all this to the end in terms of a Q&A where the thoughts have been forgotten, I'm interested in what your kind of thoughts and views are at this point. If there's nothing, then we'll sail on to the next piece. Wow. Silence. Okay. Right. In that case, let's move over. So StackStorm, brief history and reinvigoration then. So if you don't know what StackStorm is, StackStorm really is I don't want to say classic. It was kind of one of the first if this then that type platforms. And the idea is that we feed it inputs through sensors that are loaded up, and a sensor could be poll or pull. So the idea, it could go off to GitHub and check for commits. It could receive tweets. It could receive inputs from access control systems. The platform itself isn't limited necessarily to the DevOps world. I've seen StackStorm deployed in industrial control environments, which is take it or leave it. It's an interesting one. But once we go beyond the inputs, we have a rule engine, and the rule engine can do some kind of complex logic. So that's and or if type stuff, leading to workflows. And the workflows then are either single atomic actions, so maybe turn light on and off or honk Tesla horn, or it can be a full-blown workflow. Really, we're kind of talking about kind of the Dijkstra and Mills type approach to this, which is programming from the 60s, or structured programming. So we have termination, so we have entry and exit points. We have if then and else statements, which is really kind of alternation, and then we have branching and decision making, which means we can do multiple we can handle multiple scenarios, so we can either launch an entire workflow with every input that it needs to traverse every possible branch, depending on the internal decision making, or the workflows themselves can go out and get additional information and either ask for user input, or we can go off and pull information from databases and so on and so forth. And then actions themselves really are the kind of integration to the outside world as a fan out, and that could be, again, we could go off to GitHub, or we could go off do a pull, we could do a commit, we could send information off via a chatbot, we could send a tweet. The platform itself then has end-to-end logging and auditing, and really one of the things I started thinking about 12 months ago, at least 12 months ago, was skinning StackStorm for almost industrial / security requirements. So if you take like an industrial programmable logic controller, which does ladder logic, I kind of began to think, well, how hard would it be to skin StackStorm in a way that we could do ladder logic workflows and then apply it to scenarios that have traditionally been, let's say, served by very expensive kind of software providers. So we start thinking about access control and security systems for large licenses, multi-site licenses. You're talking thousands of pounds. But because of the way the platform is, it's based on inputs, decision making, and triggers. It's kind of like the logic engine that you see in so many products, but packaged and ready to go and ready to be integrated into I'll say the outside world, or a multitude of environments. So if you didn't know what StackStorm is and you're interested in more, it's pretty comprehensive, multiple workflow engines, everything's pretty much written in Python, all the logic. So if you wanted to go off, build sensors, so for instance, I built a syslog pack, and what the sensor does is several things. It listens to syslogs, but it also actually polls a rule engine. So the idea is a syslog comes into the sensor has a lookup table to see what kind of pattern matches it needs to do onto the syslog message itself, and only the ones that have been matched and go into the rule engine, which then can traverse down into workflows and actions. But most of the sensors were written in Python, although some of the processing was written in Go. So I guess the point here is it's very open, it's very friendly, it's quite easy to get going with from a pack point of view, and the nice thing is all of the rules, all of your chat ops messages, they're all stored in packs, either the default pack or custom packs that you can build, and these packs are portable. So if you have multiple instances or multiple deployments of StackStorm, you can take that pack and all of your logic can go with it, which is great for kind of backup and restore purposes, or kind of rapid deployment out in the field. It's kind of like a really great self-contained logic engine that is, I think, I don't know whether these days it's been unnoticed because of the NetOps approach and the field that it was applied to, or it's just been kind of washed over by all the marketing activities of the competition, which I'll go into shortly as well. But a little bit of a background on the platform itself. So it's been around for less than 10 years, but it was launched by Dimitri Zmin and Evan Powell. It attracted lots of attention and rapidly gained foothold in large organizations. If you just kind of Google StackStorm and use cases, or StackStorm and customers, what you'll find regularly is the big neon lit customers, or certainly consumers. I think Netflix pops up there quite regularly. But what you'll also see is customers that don't want to be exposed, so they've been using the platform, but they don't necessarily want to share that they're using the platform. And this is a problem that I think every vendor suffers from. You have products, but you generally can't tell anybody who's using the products. So it's a bit of a catch-22 situation. But StackStorm is used by a lot of different kinds of organizations out there. And unfortunately / fortunately, it gained the attention of Brocade Networks. So back in 2016, Brocade acquired it, and I was kind of loosely part of the team that did some of the identification work for the purposes of network automation. Now, network automation in 2016 was really quite basic. We might have done some very, very simple kind of Jinja 2 stuff, some basic Python scripts, TCL, Perl, And instead of going off building custom software, the idea was that StackStorm, with all of its kind of various levels of logic and capabilities, would give us a platform that would allow us to automate the Brocade network elements. And they were predominantly switches and some routers. Now, some of those devices were CLI only, so it made it kind of fun to do the automation on. But ultimately, packs, and these were proprietary packs that were paid for, were released through Brocade for doing things like IP fabric construction and really configuration and deployment, amongst other kind of BAU daily activities. There was some feedback I'm going to share, certainly from my experience on being at Brocade in that time, and as it went over to Extreme as well, I was kind of carried across into Extreme, where I became a TME permanently attached, so technical marketing engineer permanently attached to the StackStorm platform. And some customers loved it. They immediately got it. We did kind of global training. I mean, I must have circumvented the globe several times, delivering kind of 3 to 4 day training sessions for partners and for different kind of regional teams. Some customers picked this up and absolutely loved it. They raved about it. And StackStorm for me was very much my lifeblood. It's certainly in the field, not on the core engineering side, I'm hasten to add. But some of the feedback as well was, because of the target customers of the products that Brocade had, which were very simple devices, simple switches, simple routers, the custom mindset wasn't anywhere near where it needed to be able to pick StackStorm up and get the best out of it. And that was some feedback that was probably a little bit hard to swallow. But that was a few years ago. Things have moved on. There's certainly a skill up going on. But what happened, and this is really quite exciting, Extreme, when they acquired all the kind of, I say, fire sale items from Brocade, they got StackStorm as part of the deal, and I don't think it fit very well, so they handed it over to the Linux Foundation, where it sits now. So it's kind of, it went from being out there in the wild and people looking at it and generating excitement in use, and then very quickly it got narrow banded into the network automation or NetOps use cases. And then with it obviously being back in the Linux Foundation, so not back, but now it's in the Linux Foundation as a project, I think it's in a really good place to kind of emerge again as the platform it was before it kind of moved over into the NetOps space. And we've got lots of platforms coming out now. I mean, I think I'm seeing notifications of one or two a week at the moment of some platforms that basically all emulate StackStorm's core functionality. So if you've not seen this, Puppet have an MVP and it's called Relay. Relay, I think in the background it looks to be based on Argo, but ultimately it replicates a lot of what StackStorm has. Now this is a SaaS, you can't run it on site, so you don't have, well, let's say the headaches of running it on a server, but more importantly, you don't have the flexibility by having a platform like StackStorm. Calvarion, NetBrain, the functionality is eerily the same. There's more. I can't remember now that the list just keeps growing and growing. Some of them are quite tied into ML and AI. And certainly I was involved in a number of engagements in the field around ML and AI. And you have to ask a question, obviously, with kind of neural networks. They're based on the amount of information you feed them, and they're great for figuring out, abnormalities. But do you really want to leave the hands of your, do you really want to leave the infrastructure in the hands of an AI or ML that's been fed probably a minimal amount of data to make decisions and drive? I don't think so yet. If I was kind of back in the operational position, I wouldn't want to be handing over responsibility like that. But certainly from an assurance piece, on what does normal look like, and being able to deal with StackStorm's event-driven pipeline, I want to send meaningful events into the platform. So you think, well, ML has an interesting play. Something worth talking about is StackStorm is now classified as a mature project. And what that ultimately means is there's less pie in the sky thinking. So I'm regularly part of projects that go, we've got this great idea and we just need to do these 3 things and we're all going to make $1 billion. Great. StackStorm has kind of moved beyond that point. So its kind of key features and functions are out there. They work. And really we're kind of in a business as usual mode. So the platform is maintained, software. The software life cycle will deal with things like a programming language moving through major versions, so Python 2 up to Python 3 is a good example of that, or phasing out components where they're no longer required, or swapping out workflow engines. So we're in this kind of BAU mode now, and people who analyze this platform, I've seen comments even recently, the project's dead, there's no commits, so there's not enough commits being made. And it's like, if you measure the project by the number of commits without checking how long the project has been alive for, your analysis is probably a little bit wrong. But the community is very much alive, and there's lots and lots of packs out there. And I know even if I email somebody on the StackStorm exchange where all the packs are located, you normally get a response. I don't really come across dead ends much. So even though all the excitement has gone away, StackStorm you could probably classify as a boring platform. But really, what I wanted to talk about here was the narrowing that happened through NetOps, and StackStorm kind of disappeared off the radar a little bit, which I think is pretty sad. We've got an opportunity right now where StackStorm's core functionality works for so many environments and so many use cases. So even though we can still use it for some NetOps type opportunities, let's say opportunities, obviously I'm here with a sales hat on as well as a tech hat on. I think ultimately we can move it back into the mind's eye that surrounds the whole kind of DevOps community. Which is why obviously the group changed from the StackStorm group to the infrastructure orchestration and automation, I think, to try and take the focus away from the StackStorm platform directly itself onto the kind of use cases, requirements, and then if StackStorm fits, great. If not, well, let's figure out what else works and what else we need to do as a community, and then can we build a community around sharing knowledge and really providing that kind of group value, or the table of grannies value I always like to talk about. So I think just on that, I keep contradicting myself ever so slightly. So why StackStorm? Well, generally over the years, I just come to view it as the kind of Swiss Army knife or a flagstone in your architecture. It's pretty simple to explain. It's if this, then that. You throw an event at it, the rule matches something, go do something. It's not a SaaS. StackStorm partners might SaaSify it in the future, which might be useful. Certainly now we're seeing emerging platforms or emerging MVPs. One of the use cases I love is this kind of auto REST API. So if you build out a pack and actions and workflows, you can call them through the API endpoint. You'd have to go in and code it together. So just by operating the platform, you get access to that through the REST API. You got portability through the packs, like we spoke about earlier on. This is for all the information that goes into configuring that pack. So the rules, the chat ops information, workflows, and so on and so forth. A huge range of packs. I can't remember the exact count. I think we're over 160-ish, but I put 150 to be a little bit conservative. At this point, it's a boring platform, hopefully, but there's great ROI. If you're willing to invest a little bit of time, you can get a lot back for it. Now, I say it's a simple platform. You have to spend a little bit of time to crack the ice. I've been to see certain customers over the years that said, yeah, we're all over StackStorm, we've got it all figured out, and then you see what they've done with it, and you kind of realize they haven't even scratched the ice, never mind broke the ice. It's still something you have to invest time into to get the best out of the platform. But the StackStorm community on Slack is there, it's alive. The technical steering committee, and we've got Eugen up next from that, will give us a bit of a background. I'm almost out of information for the opening. I'm not going to do that thing again where I come back for you for thoughts, because clearly you're not going to say anything. So I'm not going to put the pressure on. That's all fine. At this point, I'm going to hand over to Eugen, providing you are ready, sir.
That was a great start, by the way, and history about StackStorm. I mean, you nailed it. Just a little bit about me. I'm Eugen, senior maintainer behind the StackStorm open source project. SRE in the past, DevOps engineer, a bit of engineering manager, and I've been with StackStorm project for the past 5 years. Previously was as principal systems engineer at Extreme Nextworks, and was responsible pretty much for entire infrastructure behind the StackStorm project, like installation experience, deployment methods, CI/CD, overall systems stability. And now I'm more interested in building a community and overall project success. And many of you know about StackStorm. It's event-driven automation platform. It's very helpful in DevOps area, automation, network automation, security responses. And security is a big thing with integrations with more than 100 and more DevOps tools and services. And it's also relevant for SRE as well. It's about sleeping better at night, relying on auto remediation capabilities of the project, of the tool. And we have seen like good adoption in this area as well. So yeah, project started as a startup around 2014 or 13, acquired 2 times. David covered that, and eventually contributed to the Linux Foundation. And at the moment, StackStorm community includes, in Slack, we have 6,000 members, and project has 4,000 stars in GitHub. And it's still used by the big names, for example, Verizon, Cisco, VMware, Fastly, Target, HP, Adobe are relying on StackStorm. And now this talk mostly about the project community, like how open source project landed under the Linux Foundation, how it operates, what changed, how the community looks these days. And the transition from company-owned to pure open source is hard. I mean, when we had a team of company employees dedicated full-time to the project, that was one thing. And now the project transitioned to the fully open model, relying on its community. And it's from kind of open source to real open source, and it's very hard for the project for like short term, but it's very good long term for the project future. And the main point is like having a neutral home and governance for the open source project is great. I mean, the transparency, openness, everything is documented, available to anyone at any point of time. And what's also important is there is no single vendor or owner anymore. And I mean, Linux Foundation is a new neutral home, and it's very important for open source communities to evolve in this neutral space. So everyone can participate in project future, and it's pretty fun, I would say. We see a lot of community members doing it and enjoying it. So under the Linux Foundation neutral space, we defined new StackStorm governance. It's just to document processes and parties and roles behind the project, like maintainers, their involvement, their responsibilities, so everyone can join. And the governance behind StackStorm enables maintainers to get involved in project development and get recognized for that. And it's based on meritocracy. I mean, people influence project future with their contributions, code, work, maintenance, and dedication. Can you see StackStorm governance? I hope.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So yeah, that's pretty much how our governance looks like. Sometimes pretty complicated, but it's how many Linux Foundation projects operating. And next is like actual owners behind the projects. So we talked about the roles, and now it's this governance defines the technical steering committee, like maintainers behind the project. And at the moment we have 10 permanent maintainers behind the StackStorm open source project, and that's great. We are pretty diverse, everyone from the different companies, no more single owner. And these are the project heroes, I mean, who push their life and do StackStorm releases at night, or support the project during their free time, answer questions at forum and Slack, fix bugs, triage issues, update documentation, work on roadmap items, and for community to benefit from and to bring you the best experience we can do. And we also do monthly technical steering committee meetings, and where maintainers get together and discuss the project roadmap, plans, and problems. And the meetings are pretty much open. There is predefined schedule, agenda for each meeting, and we post meetings so everyone can join, everyone can participate, and it's also pretty nice thing to have. Also, there are some nice things, goodies from the Linux Foundation. They provide us support and help. Here is Linux Foundation Analytics dashboard, which includes all, like, a lot of statistics around the projects, repositories, contributions, code changes. That's pretty helpful, I would say, and it's evolving. We'll get more stats and sources. That's also pretty great indicator to see how our community is evolving. Is it growing or not? What are the pain points? We had 2 releases during the last year. 3.2, 3.3, and StackStorm maintainers working on the 3.4 roadmap now. We switched to 3 months release cadence for StackStorm releases. That would be great. I mean, we having this heartbeat of new releases is very important for the project, and we see like our users are happy when every time we do a new release. So having these releases more frequently would be great, and we are targeting that path. There is also talking about the extreme networks, the previous owner who actually contributed the StackStorm to Linux Foundation or open source. They recently they contributed also enterprise, previously extreme workflow composer features to Linux Foundation and StackStorm open source. This includes Airbag, LDAP, Workflow Designer, and it's great for community. StackStorm maintainers, we have plans to integrate these features into StackStorm Core in future releases like 3.4 or 3.5. But the flip side is that extreme networks is stopping covering the StackStorm expenses, as obviously StackStorm is on Linux Foundation and community shoulders now. And yeah, we have quite a lot of expenses right now, which we're trying to minimize, optimize with free open source plans. Yeah, that includes like cloud infrastructure for release automation, package repositories, forum, StackStorm email accounts, CI, CD. Yeah, that's pretty huge now, and we are optimizing it. We, at the same time, Linux Foundation provided us a platform to get donation for supporting StackStorm infrastructure. You can see here it's a Linux Foundation Community Bridge platform, and we welcome donation from our community to support this infrastructure behind the project, especially if you are using StackStorm in production and it's part of your business automation pipeline. Go, and we welcome these contributions. I mean, open source economy is hard. So yeah, go for it. Talking about the adoption we, as said, we still have a lot of adoption, but we want to get more. There are a lot of companies which are really big names, which are still kind of shy talking about the StackStorm usage and how they benefit from it. But there are, of course, like some good cases. For example, Verizon, which is using StackStorm for automating 20,000 of servers, and they're doing more with StackStorm right now. And there is also Adobe, which are using StackStorm for SRE, and they're kind of automating really a lot, like saving a lot of SRE work time to auto-remediate the alerts and issues in their infrastructure. That's great. We love to see this kind of adoption and also see how companies share these stories. So if StackStorm is part of your business pipeline, we invite you to join our community. Like get involved in the development and project future, share your success stories, our use cases. It could be technical challenge you solved with StackStorm, and like let's celebrate that together and help us celebrating this. Share your stories. It could be like blog posts, guest blog posts. We invite guest blog posts on stackstorm.com, and we'll share that in our community, of course, on Slack, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And this is very important for projects, especially at this time of the project lifetime when we join this neutral home. So the project is very transparent right now, and it's 200 open source these days. Our goals are to increase adoption, and I hope our community will help with that. And we want to enable more corporations using the tool to get involved in the project development or strategic future. What is the StackStorm future? And we will look forward to evolving the platform under the new neutral and open Linux Foundation space. And we hope to eventually help you automating all the things. Yep, that's pretty much everything. Thanks, everyone. And I'll hope to see you in StackStorm community. David?
Hey. Thank you, Eugen, for that. I appreciate that. I mean, just so everybody else knows, I kind of put the pressure onto Eugen as well. So thank you for coming out swinging there, mate. That's very much appreciated. I've got some questions for you. But what I'm going to do, just in the name of time, I'm going to save them to the end if that's all right, and then we'll get Amanda up next for the demo, and then we'll pick your brains towards the end. But thank you for that. You've yeah, that's been really interesting. So many things I didn't know. Really cool. So thank you very much. Excellent. Can you unshare your screen as well, please, Eugen? We'll get Amanda up next. Amanda, you ready? So again, yeah. Amanda McGuinness from Amion Solutions. Amanda's also part of the TSC. She's one of these kind of fortunate people, or maybe cursed, I'm not quite sure which she spends a lot of time working on the core of the StackStorm platform. So yeah, take it away, Amanda. All yours.
Hi, as David introduced me there, I'm Amanda McGuinness and I work for Amion Solutions. So I'm a technology consultant for Amion in the UK here, and been involved with automation on various platforms over the years. And joined the TSC for StackStorm this year, which was great, and encourage everyone to get involved. So today I'm just going to do a demo of how we're using StackStorm to monitor our AWS instances, and also just to show you how StackStorm ChatOps can be used and how you could apply it to lots of different scenarios if you've not got involved with ChatOps. So the background issue we had is we use AWS for our projects. We always cost those on just running during working hours. And obviously with AWS, costs can easily escalate if you just accidentally leave it running overnight, or God forbid the weekend, then it really, really increases your costs. So we had in scenario A, we were having our costs. B, people were having to get their laptops out, check at the weekend, you know, that awful feeling you get when you go to bed going, have I shut my instances down? Trying to stop that. We also have scenarios where the people using the instances may not have the AWS account, so they were having to ask other people to start and stop. So we wanted to make that easier. We already had StackStorm, and we were interested as well in its chat ops. And so we sort of combined the two together because they came to a really nice fit. So just a little bit of background on how ChatOps is being used with StackStorm. The TSC recently did a ChatOps survey, and the results of those are published. You can go and have a look. As you can see, Slack is the top provider out there being used, but Microsoft Teams is also supported by StackStorm, and that's used quite a lot, and people are looking into that. There's a variety of ways of using StackStorm's ChatOps. One-way notifications is the highest, but also using for querying and using it to initiate arbitrary tasks. So there's a lot more information results in those surveys that might be of interest to you. How we're using it to initiate actions from Slack. I'll show you some of that. We use it to report on workflows. So these workflows, you know, that might be triggered by either timers in the case I'm going to show today, but event-driven, sensor-driven, whatever initiates your workflows. And we use that to inform people what's going on via Slack. We also use it as our way of getting authorization for workflows. So problem's been found, but we want to get some permission to do that. So we also use it to respond back. So what we wanted to know regular reporting if instances were running out of hours. We wanted people to be able to inquire and start and stop via Slack. So if they were on the channel, they'd be able to manage these EC2 instances. We also wanted the regular reporting to allow people to easily stop those instances. So make that as simple as possible to try and avoid those costs. We do also have some projects that use AWS, and they are based on 24-hour usage. So in those cases, we don't want that to get confusing. So we added in the ability to mark instances as exempt so that they would not get reported. So we started simple, which is really easy with StackStorm. Initial things we did, put in aliases to start, stop, and inquire. We happen to use the AWS Boto3 pack. At the time when we used this, there wasn't multi-region support in the AWS pack. That has been added, so it would be possible to do this in the AWS pack as well. And there are some base aliases. If you've only got just one region that you use and one account, then those aliases already exist in the AWS pack. Obviously, they could be extended for multi-support, and anyone in the community could add that if that was something they were interested in. So just going to show you now what we got from our very first steps, and then I'll move on to where we've moved on to. So just on my Slack channel here, I've got various instances. So we just introduced a really simple alias. Make that a bit bigger. So I can just inquire what EC2 instances I've got running. For demo, I'm just using our EUS2 region. So just show, I've just got 2 instances currently in there at the moment on this region. So really simple alias, we go and inquire, and we can report what instances we've got running. Now to stop, to allow me not to have to do this log in, we wanted to be able to start and stop those. So we just added in a very simple alias here just to start and stop, and you can add the IDs in. So I'm just going to restart this one because I need it for the demo. And I'll go and show you actually how we do the aliases done before. So this will go, reports to us what's happening. And if I refresh this, I should have a nice instance running. So now you can see both my instances are running. So what I wanted to show was I didn't write any code to get that done. StackStorm aliases are really easy to do. You simply write a YAML file. So for instance, for that start instance, you can just declare what action it requires to, how you want that to look in the help, how that maps to the actions. Something very simple that got added in 3.2 of StackStorm is immutable parameters to aliases. And I found it makes things a lot simpler and a lot clearer. So the AWS Botto 3 pack's very generic. So I can do any action I like with any parameters. So we just added in immutable parameters. We want the action start instances always, and we want the service EC2. So this stops you having to create, where previously you might have created an action to hard code things and hidden them. You can now just do that in your alias definition. So without writing a single bit of code, what did we get? So now we've got manually can go and start and stop. We just do that via Slack. Many of us have it on our phones, so anyone can do it. We control who can do it via who's allowed on the Slack channel, and that's very simple now just to stop and start. Obviously, we wanted to go on past that. We wanted to not require anyone to check. So we just used StackStorms. In this case, we didn't need the event-driven. We just needed regular checking. So we just use 2 cron timer triggers, 1 for weekends, 1 for weekdays. We go and inquire what's going on. So our simple workflow, and again, no code, very small amount of code written for the Excel integration, but really not much code here. We using the AWS Botto 3 pack. We're managing our exempt instance. We happen to use an Excel pack where we've got a sheet per region. And just to make that simple, again, I've got aliases. We use those to add and remove instances. So no one needs to know the nitty gritty. They can just do that via Slack. So then we use the chat ops, report the information of what's running, do the inquiries, and respond for authorization. We also happen to use ServiceNow if people are stopping, so we can see what's going on. If certain instances are left repeatedly, then maybe we need to see what's going on that side. Little diagram, fairly self-explanatory. So we're talking to Slack, AWS, ServiceNow, and we've got our Excel spreadsheet on the box. As I say, this really simple workflow. Most of this, again, obviously is done via YAML. So we want to inquire what's running, find out what's exempt, pass those 2 lists, take out the non-exempt, report if there's anything running, and ask the user to stop. So allow that all to be done via Slack. So I've disabled the rules at the moment so that I can initiate it manually. We just take in, most important thing, what region we want to run on. So we'll inquire on our region. Kick off. Oh, typical. What have I done? Live demo. I know. Give me 2 seconds. Yeah, I'm sure I typed that in. Right, it's telling me I didn't put that parameter in. Let's try again. You can tell it's live if the person makes a mistake. I would love to say it was a deliberate one, but no. Right, off we're going. Right, so we report back what instances are running. As you can see, it's only it reported one instance, but I've got 2 running. Well, let's have a look. I'm probably got something exempt. So let's have a look at our exempt list. And double check that the other instance that I've got running, this CAC one, should be exempt. And as you can see, it's exempt. So that's mimicking the case where we've got VMs being used out of hours. So what we try and do with our aliases is to make this as simple as possible. We used to do them and just use things a lot like the ASL, the generic ST2 respond, where you would then sort of put JSON responses in. And we had feedback that, you know, for some people that's a little bit too complicated. So we try and make our aliases so that basically all the user has to do is just cut and paste the things. So in this case, I'm going to authorize it to stop. And hopefully that will come off and then go and stop my instances for me. And we like to report via Slack what's going on. So it's initiated stop. It's going to tell me what state they are. And if I want more information, so let's just double check. I should have one of my instances stop now. So that's what we brought. We did very simply. I'm just going to briefly, I think if anyone has used StackStorm, then the workflows will be of no surprise. If you've not, then check out StackStorm if you've not checked it out. Just very briefly, all of these packs, all of the actions came from packs from the community. We didn't need to write any custom packs. We just wrote the aliases and a little bit of wrapper on some tasks. And then the inquiry, the chat ops, we're using the core.ask and redirecting that to Slack so that everything, I don't need to go into StackStorm and respond. I don't need to issue an ST2 command. I don't need to go into the GUI. I can just do everything via my Slack. So I've nearly finished. So now what that got us is we don't need to check. I don't need to worry if I've left my instances running. Everyone's going to get notified. Embarrassingly, my manager did, you know, a few weeks ago going, do you want me to stop your instances? And I was saying, I've stopped them. What are you on about? And then it's like, yes, okay, I hadn't. They were still running. So obviously that allows anyone to do it and report back. We support ones that are out of hours. So we have some that are running. That's fine. They won't get reported. So we won't accidentally stop those. Do everything via aliases, make it nice and simple for users so that they can manage it. And obviously this type of thing can be easily extended. There are other things that can increase your costs on AWS, volumes being left over, IPs, etc. We've made the demo publicly available, so that's on ASL's public GitLab. So if you want to look or modify, take a look in more detail, that's available to download. So just on chat ops, yeah, it's available. Use it for any number of scenarios it applies to. I'm using Slack. You could use Microsoft Teams. So once only problem with chat ops is once you start using it, you just keep on thinking of lots of other scenarios where, oh, it wouldn't be good if I could do that via Slack, etc. So you do start ending up with a larger and larger request base. And mutable parameters, if you've not taken a look, they got added in StackStorm early in the year in 3.2 release, and they do help to keep those aliases nice and simple and less code. Chat up survey It's interesting reading. Also was going to do a shout out for, there's a ChatOps roadmap meeting on next Tuesday. We're looking at moving the StackStorm ChatOps over to Python. So that's under discussion. And what do people need using the information from that survey? How are people using ChatOps? So if you're interested, details of that are in the discussions. And yeah, try it out if you've not used it. And as ever, we always rely on the community for help. So any help is much appreciated. And that's it from me.
Thank you, Amanda. Right. These aren't pre-canned questions, I promise. So there's a couple of things. One, I'm going to put the presenter hat on. You speak about aliases quite a lot. So having done this in the past, there's a little bit of getting used to how information is passed through from whatever chat platform you're on through the chatbot into StackStorm. Can, for the audience, just kind of give a very brief overview of what an alias actually is? Or if you can explain the mechanics. I think this comes up a lot, and I think we take it for granted because we know what they are. If you've never touched this, it'd be good to kind of have a little bit of an explanation. And I know I'm putting you on the spot with this, but I can't help it. I am.
So I thought I might have explained it, but didn't. So in the alias, so what we do is we define what you type in on your ChatOps. In my case, it was Slack, and what action in StackStorm that maps to, and which parameter maps to what. So for instance, when I did EC2, I can't even remember my aliases now, EC2 get, that's the command, and that's going to map to a command on the AWS Boto3 pack. And then I typed in region. So I define what the next word along is and what that maps to. Which parameter in the StackStorm action does that map to? So the format of those is completely up to you. You define it whatever way you want. You map that to an action and map how the parameters in what you type go to StackStorm parameters. Does that make sense?
That makes, yeah, lovely. And you showed a text snippet as well. I think I've been guilty of this in the past where I go, and then there's this, and then there's this text, and then I kind of move on to the next thing, and at the end somebody puts a hand up and says, "Psst, what's an alias?" And you're like, "Oh, I covered this." Okay.
No, fine.
Second question. ChatOps, like you say, very addictive. I've been doing all sorts of creative things with it over the years. Interestingly as well, and a nice use case around automating edge security. So for instance, permitting IP connectivity into a network, for instance, is a really nice use case. Jump on your phone, jump on Slack, what's my IP address? And the nice thing is you can move away from VPN requirements. So providing obviously you're using HTTPS or SSH, you can open the edge ports up. But that leads me to a question that regularly used to come up when I was out in the field trying to position solutions with StackStorm, and that is security with ChatOps. So for instance, if you stand up, say, Slack, and you have a chatbot, and then you have users, can you give us an example of how you would, say, limit some of those aliases to a group of users or a single user? Just I think what comes up regularly is can anybody just go on to Slack and then run these aliases, and how we would secure that.
Right, so ChatOps and RBAC is one of the things I think everyone keeps asking for to be into the StackStorm community. So the way things are done at the moment, there's some mechanisms, and some of it you have to write yourself. So for instance, I can limit who can do what via Slack with channels. I also limit what I can do using things like I have IAM controls, etc., to limit what can be done. You can, if you've got RBAC, you can limit what actions can be done, but tying it to a particular Slack user or a Slack channel is where the ChatOps RBAC really needs to come in, which isn't there at the moment. What I've done in the past is I've put in workflows and had the first thing check, where did that command come from? Was it which Slack channel and which API user? So I can manage it that way, but I tend to do that by putting something in place So they fire off a workflow. The first thing it does is a verification. So you do have to do it yourself, but you do get with StackStorm just off the shelf, you do get that pass to you. You get the name of the user and the net channel that will come in for our chat up. So you do have to do it yourself a bit. We know everyone wants us to integrate that a bit more with our back. I'm looking at Eugene if he's got any comments on that. But we first got to move chat ops over to Python. Once we've got chat ops over to Python, then maybe we can look at those and get that more integrated so that you don't have to do it yourself, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I know there is all sorts of ways of skinning that particular cat, but obviously it's a nice answer. Thanks for that. Cool. All right. So thank you, Amanda. Good stuff. And nice to see the live demo as well. I think you actually got saw a lot more thanks to a little, dare I say, mistake. I'm scared of Amanda. Excellent. Right. What I'll do is, in the interest of time, I'm just gonna speed up a little bit just so we can get to the more interesting pieces. I'm going to share my screen again, go back to the presentation from the current slide. So had that from Amanda. Right, closing remarks. Okay. Interestingly, presented on something very similar last week, and there's been I think a seismic shift just from a visibility point. If you look at surveys, if you look at information floating around on social media, I think there really has been a gear shift at this point, from thinking about and being, say, automation ambitious or orchestration ambitious to kind of just getting on with it and doing it. And this is great. So I think now we need to just get a little bit more wiser about how we do this, gather some industry experience. And really this goes around to what I was talking about in the open is, have we got the energy and the interest to start sharing and really kind of providing some support for those who obviously have a living or run businesses in this field, but also more importantly to where the technology is applied. Can we build confidence? Can we, and this is really straight out of my kind of life book, can we put the right technology into the right situation to get those results? I think StackStorm is one of those lovely platforms where it's clearly got the capabilities. Now that it's been contributed to the Linux Foundation, it needs some love. I know Eugene mentioned the kind of needs for the community to get involved and support, whether that's through posts, whether that's through documentation or writing code. There's all sorts of ways and means of getting involved with these kind of platforms. Now, the observations really from my point of view, there's lots and lots and lots of products all coming out with kind of very eerily similar, or if that's not even a word, eerily similar features and capabilities to the StackStorm platform. So I think things are heating up and it's getting competitive, and where there's competition, there is interest and there's growth, and there's always outcomes, which is fantastic. Community building is something I've spoke about a lot, and if it's a non-goer, if this is not going to fly, then I'll probably shut up about it forever. But I'd very much love to get some feedback here, even if we can just start maybe doing some content aggregation on this and kind of centralizing some of the how-tos and some of the guides, and maybe is through the StackStorm site itself. I'm not sure at this point, but I think there is a lot of demand for information. There's a lot of demand for skill, and we have professional services organizations, we have those systems integrators, value-added resellers that can pick these platforms up and do things with them. But I think that as well there is an interesting aspect to this. StackStorm is interesting. Certainly I've been involved loosely over the years, kind of adding packs and things, and certainly solving it for specific use cases. StackStorm actually automates my home. So I mean, just on that one itself, and it's quite an old version, but I actually open gates, electric gates with it, and security lights and everything, and the platforms just work faultlessly for years. One of the things I'd love to do is start get another meetup in January, and hopefully not on the same day as the London Network Automation meetup, which was today and exactly at the same time, which is, I don't know how I didn't notice that one, completely my bad there. So I think maybe let's just get through Christmas in one piece, and then maybe have a bit of a think about things for January. If you need to go and seek any kind of approvals or requests from your management team, or if you're happy to do this to do it on your own and take the risk, come back, maybe present. It doesn't have to be polished. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 3 minutes, it could be an idea and how it went wrong. It doesn't even have to work. I think we're just interested here as a community, just trying to see what people are up to, how they're using the tools, the platforms, the challenges that you're facing, and that gives us all interesting insight as to where the community and industry is going. Okay, in the meetup, I did mention this, so I've got some swag, and I've got a limited amount of swag. So there are pens, there are stickers. The silver thing that you see there is a multi-tool. My advice to you is don't try and put this on hand baggage for a plane, because it will probably get confiscated, although I had reports of people actually managing to get on the plane with it, which is terrifying because those things are sharp. If you drop me an email, so me@dave.dev, give me your postal address and t-shirt size. I'm sorry, there's either large or extra large. I'm not exactly a big guy. The large fits me just fine. The extra large is quite large. Just send me what size you are. I've got a limited amount of these, probably 10 or 11, but please, if you're interested in this stuff, free of charge. You can see my wife has ironed this shirt. I joke, this has actually been in a bag for 3 years, but let me have your address and your name. I'll get those over to you, and you can have some swag on us. Thank you. I've got to say this just because, and I mentioned this really early on, we can't do community meetups and community sessions. We can't post out swag. We can't really do have guests with demos without the support of the companies around them. So Amion Solutions, thank you. I know Amanda and there's a few other people here today from Amion Solutions, so thank you to that organisation. Who are covering costs, and then there's a little startup down at the bottom as well that just kind of thrown some money in to help post some of the swag just from a community interest point of view. So drop me an email, me@dave.dev, and at this point, hopefully, we are at the Q&A. So what I'm going to do, I'm now going to do a stop sharing the screen, if I can get out of that. So I did say I had a question for Eugen, but I'm happy I've got that written down. I'm not gonna forget that. So do we have any questions, any comments, any thoughts? You've all been very quiet. It's eerie. So either you're watching football, you're doing the London Network Automation meetup, or something else. Any comments? Has this been crap? Just say it if it has. Has it not lived up to any kind of expectation? The audience.
Hi Dave. This is Graham.
Hi Graham.
No, I just wanted to say thanks. I was completely a StackStorm virgin before tonight, pretty much, and I was just curious to hear what it's all about. And it was a very nice overview and a nice demo, Amanda. And so thank you very much for organising. And I don't have a specific question, but it was just want to say thanks.
Thank you, Graham. That's really good of you. Cheers for that.
And Eugen as well. I forgot to say Eugen as well.
How could you forget Eugen? Terrible. Thank you for that. Anybody else?
There's a question on chat.
Oh, okay. Ooh, I'm not going to even attempt to answer this. This is down to Amanda or Eugen.
I'm looking to Eugen for this one. So Eugen, the question was, for current or even future perspective of the platform, are you moving to only support StackStorm on Kubernetes, or keep supporting the standalone installation?
We want to support different StackStorm installations, of course, and give any user its preferred way to install and deploy StackStorm, of course. Yeah, that's where we what we did before and what we'll keep doing.
Okay. I think we've got more of a statement up next as well around the AWS demo. So it was pretty cool. Well done, Amanda. Some kudos there, pat on the back. And we've got some people writing some monitoring for AWS as well. So that's good. Any more questions? Put them in chat, or you can take yourself off mute and introduce yourself and say hello. We don't bite, I promise. I might look like I bite. I've got my dinner downstairs, so you're going to be safe for now. Okay, in that case then, Eugen, I'm gonna hit you with some questions. You ready? And I love this. We're not prepared. It's fantastic. So in terms of getting involved with the community, I know I spoke about this, and I'm a grand one to talk. I keep saying I will, and I just run out of time in terms of getting involved. But in terms of entry point, I think one of the biggest comebacks, and I say one of the biggest holdups, and I've seen this in the OpenStack community, I've seen it in the Kubernetes community, in pretty much every single software project out there, people are hesitant to get involved because they don't think they're good enough, or that the team are a bunch of absolute rock stars and they're terrified to make a mistake. So can you just kind of share anything in terms of getting involved and where people can begin?
Yeah, just join StackStorm community and probably get involved in community first. I mean, start answering questions from the other users, or help in forum, or help triaging these GitHub issues, or help with documentation. I mean, that's a great way to start, and it's also contribution and involvement couldn't be only code. I mean, there are also many areas to get involved and help the project and have fun with that. I mean, really have fun with that and develop your skills. For example, you can get involved in marketing. We have LinkedIn, Twitter, and community building is pretty interesting task, I would say. Writing stories, blog posts, or success stories, use cases. That's also fun. I mean, you developing your technical writing skills. And, that's also interesting, I would say. So yeah, join Slack, and our community will guide you from there.
Perfect. I will add a few things here as well. So when I think I wrote the first StackStorm blog, or the first post on my blog, and I remember Dimitri Zamin picked it up, and then the StackStorm community started retweeting it, and I kind of felt a bit scared after that. It felt like I'd achieved some kind of a terrifying amplifier, and I think that's really the message, is that the community is really energetic. So if you've got some thoughts to share, I think it's a great platform to do some exploration. I know I even heard around OpenStack that people were getting involved by literally putting full stops and exclamation marks on documentation, doing commits, and I think that was to get a free ticket to the OpenStack summits. But people they got involved even at that level, just to kind of start getting used to the processes and dealing with things. And I think with open source, there's so much that happens which is negative, always perceived as negative. So much stuff. Go on, sorry, go for it. I don't want to cut you off there, Eugen.
By the way, you can start your first pull request and you'll get free stickers. I mean, one of our StackStorm maintainers, he just printed these StackStorm stickers and set up a program. So everyone who does his first contribution to StackStorm, you'll get this swag for free. It's also the way to get involved.
That's kind of awesome. I like that a lot. Yeah, that's pretty cool. With regard, I'm going to just say this is from a serious point of view, and then I've seen the question from, I don't know who you are. Sorry, is it G Woodward one? I'm going to have a guess. It's Woodward, maybe. But yeah, I think I didn't see you talking there. Apologies for that. So can you take yourself off mute, by the way? It's Gary Woodward. Hello, Gary Woodward. Does your microphone work? Your microphone level's very low. Sorry, we can't hear you. Sorry. Right, so network automation use cases. I thought I'd do. Let's have a game here where we can see you put your thumb up or thumb down. So in terms of thinking about network automation, are you thinking about day zero golden config generation and deployment? Are you thinking about the kind of day one type operations where you're reacting to network events, self-healing, auto remediation? What kind of things are you thinking about there? Day one operations. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, so I think StackStorm's got a great set of capabilities for that. Obviously, specifically my background being network automation, I can assure you I've very much used it for that kind of thing. I don't know if you've done anything in terms of exploration before, whether you've looked at StackStorm, whether you've looked at other tools, whether you're looking at any other kind of vendor-driven or vendor-offered platforms. But event sourcing is one of the difficult things to do there. Finding meaningful information and sourcing it from the network. But then the StackStorm rule engine can help you to correlate that information. And then it's thinking really about the kind of the operational workflow. So then they kind of think about it in terms of the kind of classic Dijkstra Mills structured programming, which is really the if this then that, and they're kind of going down a tree of decision making. I think StackStorm's got all the components to help you do that, plus obviously the audit trails as well. The one thing it doesn't have, and it can't make sense of graph-based topological information, so you might have to kind of move that logic to a different tool or different platform. But what I have seen is graph databases being used with a very simple API system, and then StackStorm connecting into that to be able to query for what things look like as, say, the automation takes hold on the network and transforms things. So I think it's got plenty of features, but unfortunately you're not going to find like a forward network type analysis engine, or you're not going to find like an Apstra kind of declarative or intent driven system. You've got the components to build these things yourselves there, and certainly with the power of StackStorm, you can certainly do a lot of this stuff. I mean, for example, I do a lot of kind of firewall management, and if ports go up or go down, I've got certain circuits that'll flick over. Even at home, I'm going to live kind of in a bit of a rubbish area, so broadband's not great, and there's a 4G antenna sticking on the side of the house, and StackStorm actually even controls all that if my WAN circuit starts having issues. And it's all done through just kind of very, very simple events. So once you start drawing down and converting that logic into kind of flowcharts and workflows, then StackStorm can really help there. I mean, feel free to email specifically on the topic of network automation. Might be able to help there and kind of go a little bit deeper. I will say this much: with Extreme handing over StackStorm to the Linux Foundation, you've got those kind of premium features that you'd otherwise have to pay for in other platforms. So like the kind of the workflow designer in there, RBAC and the integration, which makes it a lot nicer and a lot easier to get started with. But again, the trade in here is time. You know, you need time to get to grips with that, and obviously now it's kind of in the open source realm. If you need commercial support, on the StackStorm pages, there's a list as well of StackStorm partners that can help you do that. If you need just to kind of like a holding hand, if you go to deploy and you need any support as well. So hopefully that helps. Cool stuff. So, anybody else? Any more for any more? Or is it time to go and put your feet up and have dinner? Silence. And everybody's still apart from Amanda, which is terrifying. Okay, in that case then, I'll probably call it time of death. Thank you for coming along. We've actually managed to hold on to most of the people. 2 or 3 people have dropped off. And I think the sneaky devils down in London, the London Network Automation Meetup, they kind of scheduled it exactly as this was scheduled, which is a bit of a sneaky one. I'll go and give them a slap at some point. But thank you. Thank you for coming along. Thank you. Hopefully, if this has been of interest, drop us an email. I'll send you some swag. If you're interested, let's look at maybe one in January after Christmas, and hopefully things have calmed down a little bit globally. If you've got any aspirations, any questions, you want to share anything, come along. Doesn't necessarily have to be StackStorm related either. Just like I say, the whole infrastructure, orchestration, and automation community, I think, is really quite interesting at the moment. So feel free to raise anything. If there's no more, I'm going to stop the session. I'm going to do some editing on the recording. I'll push it off to YouTube. Yeah, thank you again, and I'll catch you all very soon.